At CES this year, I had the pleasure of sitting down with AMD, and I shared some of the questions that you had with Mr. David McAfee, who's the corporate VP and GM for AMD's Ryzen CPU and Radeon graphics division. And you might recognize him from AMD's various presentations over the years. There's a lot of exciting news coming from CES this year with new X3D CPUs and that missing 9070 announcement, which you'll find out why I was missing from their event, but hopefully this interview answers some of those questions on a more personal level and sheds some light on some of AMD's plans going forward.
Welcome to Machines More. I'm here with David McAfee from AMD, and he's the corporate VP and GM. Can you share a little bit about your role?
Talk about what I do? Sure. I run the Ryzen component business, so all of our DIY CPUs that go into systems that people build themselves, so they buy through many of our enthusiast system builders around the world, and I also run our Radeon graphics business.
So if you have a Ryzen system, or you're looking at a Ryzen system, or you use a Radeon card, then David probably made it happen, right?
Hey, and thank you for that. I'll say that first and foremost.
Couple big announcements. What was your favorite?
I am a Ryzen and Radeon person, first and foremost. So the X3D announcements and the 12 and 16 core 9000 X3D processors, to me, were the star of the show yesterday. Yes, there's lots of other big announcements that happened, but I think those two products in particular create the next step for us in our X3D family. And I will say that the adoption from Ryzen enthusiasts and gamers around the world with our X3D processors has been unprecedented and absolutely amazing. We want to keep expanding the range of where we use X3D because we think it's a great technology for gaming enthusiasts. It solves some very specific problems for gamers and provides an incredible boost in frame rate and performance. And then taking that into a space where you no longer have to compromise between being a gamer and being a creator and kind of optimizing for one or the other. I think with these new processors, you get kind of the best of both worlds and have the opportunity to have a processor that games like the best thing on the planet and offers multi-threaded creator performance like the best thing on the planet. And it's just simply no compromises. I love it when we deliver products that push the envelope and push the boundaries of what our technology is capable of and the power that it puts in the hands of users that are either gamers or creators. And so I think that to me, that's why it's my favorite of the show.
With 9900X3D and 9950X3D on the horizon, some of you are actually interested in the possibility of 9600X3D. The bigger and more interesting narrative, though, is how AMD values that extra V cache.
Is there a chance we might see a 9600 X3D in the future?
I mean, you've seen a couple of 6-core X3D parts that have come out in the past. I think we had a 7600 X3D that recently was in the market in Q3, Q4 of last year.
The Micro Center exclusive.
The Micro Center exclusive. What I will say is, the X3D parts are a place where we continue to explore where the demand is in the market and where customers want to buy those products, or I should say, not like meaning Micro Center, but where is in what price point, what capability, and what are people doing with those products. I think that we all know that X3D is an amazing technology for gaming. It is especially suited for gaming because the benefit of having that large cache next to the processor really affects effective memory latency more so than anything else. And I think games are just more so than almost any other application very, very sensitive to memory latency. It's why overclocking memory on Ryzen products brings such an advantage in the non-X3D parts, right? And X3D just brings that benefit in spades across gaming workloads. I think we'll continue to explore where and how we use X3D, both in the Ryzen 5 space as well as throughout the rest of our portfolio, and bring it to the places where it provides the value for the user for the things they want to do with it. I think that what I'll say on the counter side of that is in the creator space, the reason with like the 9950 X3D, why we didn't put stacked cache on both CCDs is outside of games, Creator applications really don't see that much benefit at all from X3D. It's like maybe 1% or less, almost negligible in the data as we've looked at that product and those product families over the years. And so actually doing that in a way that optimizes for memory latency when you're a gamer, or the memory bandwidth or memory capacity needs that are there for creator applications, without adding the overhead and cost and all of those things of 2 stacked CCDs, really is the best answer for that type of user, in our opinion. And I think we'll continue to look at that throughout the stack and find the places where we can use X3D and bring new products to market that keep getting people excited about our Ryzen processors and keep growing the number of Ryzen users that we have out there in the world.
It's fantastic the importance that they see in the X3D technology, isn't it? As I had shared, the 9070 and 9070 XE is in fact coming, even though it was notably absent from the announcement, but we couldn't ignore that, right?
I wanted to switch gears and talk about the RDNA 4.
Yes.
Yesterday during the keynote, I know we didn't hear too much about the 9070 and 9070 XT, but is that something you can kind of share about?
Yeah.
Any details on that?
I mean, I think here at CES, you'll see from many of our board partners, they'll be showing off their 9070 and 9070 XT cards. It is something that we are very excited about. However, the reason that you really didn't see it yesterday is it deserves its own moment in the sun. And I think the reality is, with a press conference at CES, there's so much news that spending a couple of minutes on our next generation graphics architecture and our next generation graphics card would have left users wanting to know more and to understand more about the product. I guarantee you, in Q1 we'll be sharing a lot more news about that product. We've made some really significant improvements as we go from RDNA 3 to RDNA 4. First and foremost, significant improvements in the ray tracing capabilities of the product, significant improvements in the math operations and ML compute capabilities of the product that power experiences like the FSR4, the ML super resolution technologies that we talked about. All of those things we think will drive a great gaming experience with those products, and can't wait to share more about that in the not too distant future.
Are you planning on anything higher than 9070 XT, or is the plan to kind of enter with the 9070 first and then?
I think the reality is we know that most gamers in the world are buying graphics cards that are well below $1,000. And truth be told, our strategy with Radeon is to focus on the biggest parts of the market where we can bring the gaming experiences that the gamers care about on the games that they love and play most today and for the next couple of years, and give them great value and just a fantastic gaming experience on those products. So we're going to compete in those parts of the market where we know we can be really effective and go after where most gamers are buying their cards today. So where that fits in the stack, we're not ready to talk about that today. But what I will say is we're going to focus on the biggest opportunities in the gaming space, for 2 reasons. Number one is it is where we can make the most difference with Radeon and bring more users onto that Ryzen and Radeon platform. The other part of it is, things like FSR4 and game optimization also depend on having scale within the Radeon business and ensuring that we're driving the most momentum around Radeon to bring gamers into the Radeon community, as well as software developers into that community, so that whether you're a Ryzen user or a Radeon user, that gaming experience is optimized for AMD and includes all of the cool AMD tech that we can bring to the table, like FSR4. That takes going after the most gamers that we can bring to the table. And so that's where we're going to be focused.
Great. So one of the questions from our community members, we have a lot of partner cards. Are we still thinking about doing reference cards or AMD branded cards into the future?
Yeah, I think the truth is, as we've looked at the AMD graphics business over the past couple of years, it's very similar to the way that we approach motherboards or other things, right? The partner ecosystem is so rich, and each of our partners brings something very unique to the table. And in my opinion, and our strategy as we think about next generation graphics cards, is really that the innovation that we can drive through a variety of partners that are each kind of specialized and focused on different things in their products gives us a broader range and more choice for end users than a specific design point that AMD is going after. So I I don't think you'll see as much from us in terms of specific AMD reference cards. My opinion is the ecosystem is far stronger when everybody is enabled and empowered to innovate and differentiate in the ways that they believe they can bring unique value to the market. And that's going to be our focus going forward.
Some of you may also be curious about why they're switching up their naming convention for this generation of Radeon GPUs, and here's what David had to say about that.
The naming convention change, right? That better aligns with the CPU generation. What about the the serial digit that kind of indicates a placement within the stack?
Yeah,
can you explain a little bit about that?
So I will be totally honest with you. I think that the move to 9000 series, you're right, pretty obvious, aligned with our 9000 series desktop processors, makes a lot of sense and makes a bit more logic within our overall product portfolio. The move in, let's call it the hundreds digit to the tens digit, if I look back at our 7000 series and you think about a 7900 XTX versus a 7900 XT versus a 7900 GRE, and for a lay person, understanding what that competes with, how it's set up in the market, what products it is positioned against, it's very difficult to understand. Now, I'll say for people that are tuning into your channel, like you've got well-educated tech enthusiasts that are a part of your audience, right? And so for those type of folks, it really won't make any difference. But I think the goal with Radeon is to bring as many users as we can into the Radeon community. We want to be as clear and transparent as we possibly can be about how these cards perform, how they're positioned, and how we think they relate relative to the competition. And that drove a lot of our decision around modifying the model numbering scheme to make it more transparent for end users to kind of do that math themselves and compare against what they see from the competitor in the market.
I was curious what someone who is in charge of Ryzen and Radeon uses in their build. It's a little bit surprising, but also sheds some detail on the user-centric strategy from AMD as it pertains to Ryzen.
What do you use yourself?
What do I use? So I have two systems. I have a system at work, which is a 90. Actually, it's a 7900, a Raphael 65-watt CPU in a small form factor desktop case, hooked up to 3 monitors, mini-itx board. Absolutely love it. Like for a workplace system where, truthfully, I'm doing email, web browsing, PowerPoint, Excel, Office applications. It's fantastic. It is quiet. It is small. Kind of sits there right behind my monitors, and then have all of this display surface to work with. Absolutely love it. And I think maybe a part of that solution that isn't always represented as a great value of either the 9000 or the 7000 series processors is the integrated graphics, right? It's driving 3 independent display surfaces, handles that flawlessly, and it's just cool, quiet, easy to use, just plug it in and go. So that's my system at work. At home, I have I had every intention of upgrading over the holiday. I have a 7800 X3D and a 7900 XTX graphics card in a system that I have at home. I was going to move to a 9800 X3D. I ran out of time, other priorities during the holiday break, but I guarantee you that's on my New Year's resolutions for 2025. And then when the time is right, I will also be upgrading to an RDNA 4 graphics card.
So if you are still using a 7800 X3D, there's no shame in that?
Oh my gosh, no shame in that at all. Look, the fact of the matter is,
the second best gaming
this 7800
CPU in the
X3D
world.
is an awesome
Absolutely
gaming card.
is.
And I think it's like, it is no secret that the X3D parts, shoot, even the 5000, like a 5700 X3D, is still a really strong gaming part. And I think if you were a gamer, you almost have to look at X3D first before you evaluate other options in the entire market right now, because it provides just such a boost on games that are sensitive to memory latency, which is a significant number of games out there in the universe of games right now.
And we have a lot of folks that are still on 5800 X3D, and when I tested 9000 series and I went back and just redid 5800 X3D benchmarks, I was surprised just how well it could still keep
Yeah.
up. I mean, we were still talking.
It holds up pretty well.
It was, well within the top for certain titles. And that's what's, like you were mentioning, the X3D is that powerful.
It is that powerful. And I think part of our strategy with X3D and the continuation of like the 5700 X3D, et cetera, is around the world, there are people that buy at lots of different price points. And whether that's a brand new system or whether that's upgrading one component within a system that they already have, providing options to do that, whether it's AM4 or AM5, is, I think, something that's really powerful for an end user. In my opinion, I've been in AMD for a long time. I've been, I'm coming up on 19 years here pretty soon. And I think the longevity of motherboards that we've done with AM4 and that we are repeating with AM5 has been a big part of the success story of why we've been able to build such a community around our Ryzen processors. Having that ability to upgrade in socket for years to come and take advantage of a motherboard that was bought years ago that you could put an X3D processor in, or whatever new technology we bring to the table next, is, I think, a really, really powerful thing for an end user. And I know that as we look at our future product plans, maintaining that motherboard compatibility and longevity is a top priority. Like, the barrier is very, very high to change our socket infrastructure because it is such a compelling value for somebody who's built a system and wants to make the most out of whatever they're going to spend on an upgrade. If somebody is completely changing out their system, okay, different story. But that freedom and flexibility to upgrade in socket is, in my opinion, I think one of the most compelling things about our Ryzen platforms.
And I remember the first Ryzen CPU that I started running was the 2600.
Okay.
The amazing thing, to your point, is that even today, with that board, I could still be putting in something new.
You could.
And that is that's a legacy right there that I think users continue to see value from their systems.
And I think the truth is, the world is a very diverse place. There are certain markets where AM5 is dominant in terms of the number of motherboards that we sell, but there's a lot of parts of the world where there is still a lot of AM4 motherboards that are purchased. And when you get right down to it, there is no value like an AM4 board, DDR4 memory, processors like the 5700 X3D or any of the processors in the AM4 family. You can build a system that games really well or is a great productivity machine or a workplace office computer at a great price. By the way, that was my system before I upgraded to that 7900. I had a 5600G in a mini-itx AM4 board, and then just swapped out the board and chassis, or swapped out the board in the same chassis and moved to an AM5 platform. But regardless of what you're looking for, whether it's a great price point and a great value with AM4 or the future upgradability of AM5, I think we've got a little something for everybody.
I did want to ask you about your small form factor system because small form factor enthusiasts here.
I figured, yeah.
What do you run? What board? What case are you running?
Oh boy, I know the board is an Asus. That has to be a B650 motherboard.
The E-I. One of my favorite boards.
Yeah, it's a nice little board.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just been fantastic. The case, I don't remember. What's funny is in the section I sit in at work, everybody's kind of got their own systems that they build and upgrade and swap out, and so the cases move around quite a bit. But
you just took it from someone?
I borrowed the case from
Yes,
someone, but
so
there is a lot of building and rebuilding that happens at the office, and the entire team are desktop enthusiasts that are always tinkering and trying out new things and putting in next-gen processors and seeing what they can do. And small form factor builds, I think, are really, really compelling. There's some great cases out there. There's some great small form factor boards that are out there right now. I personally think one of the things that's really interesting is the emergence of the micro form factor systems that I see, really coming out now, and just like changing gears a little bit and talking about other products from CES, like the Ryzen AI Max and Max Plus processors in a micro desktop, to me, is a really, really compelling option. And I think as we get later into 2025, like my bet is we see plenty of those micro desktops from various partners who are creating some really cool designs in a small form factor with just incredible capabilities.
Given that AMD is in an influential position for both, I wanted to get some insight into the future of AI and gaming and how they can work together in the future.
And that does kind of bring me to our final question here. We talked a lot about AI at the keynote, and obviously that's an important part of AMD's future, but how, as a desktop guy yourself, how does AI fit into the future of gaming and gaming desktops?
Well, I think how AI fits into the future of gaming is, it's a really interesting question. I mean, the history of gaming has been about, rasterization and raw rasterization performance. It's only been in the past few years that really ML compute technologies have been applied to gaming workloads to boost frame rates and deliver a smoother, more playable user experience. I think we are at an inflection point where the future of gaming, from now through 2030, will more and more become about using AI technologies or ML compute technologies to transform where the workload of gaming really lies.
I did want to say thank you, David.
Absolutely.
Thank you for taking time
Thanks
here
for
at
having
CES. The community absolutely appreciates all the work that you do. Ryzen CPUs, RDNA 4, lots to look forward to. Lots more content to come here at CES. So big thanks to you, David.
Thank you for having me, and thanks to everybody out there that's a Ryzen and a Radeon user. Really appreciate your support.